You know, with all this talk about contracts coming up, and of course with the whole Ricochet thing going on, I mean, we saw Ricochet tonight. Don't know what's going to happen there. Still got, assuming about 30 minutes left, so we'll see what happens. But again, with this whole contractual stuff being, discussed about whose contracts are up and who's staying, who's going, who's given notice, and all that. It's like I've said before, and I've mentioned this in the comments when this Ricochet thing came up. I mentioned it in the audio video I did on it. Look, we we of all people do not know what's going on. Like with Ricochet, we don't know what's going on unless the man confirms it himself. All what's going on, mostly the most reliable sites out there like PW Insider, Fightful, and others, is on some he say, she say kind of information. And as I've mentioned before, this is not the VKM. This is not the Vince McMahon era anymore. This is the Triple H TKO Nick Khan era. And this is an era, a regime, to where information before, under the previous regime, information contracts expiring and stuff like that don't get out as easy as they used to. I mean, you think, they're going to allow, wrestling sites, wrestling insider sites to, know about, hey, this person's contract's up at this time, that person's contract's up at this time, this person's resigned, that person's resigned. No, they're not. And if Triple H's words at that press conference after Backlash is anything to go by, he could give two whats about these places that, give information to those for free or under, from behind a paywall or Patreon or whatever. He can give two whats about them. And thus he'll probably, along with Nick Khan and others, give the, quote, inside sources that leak out the information false narratives to go by. That way they could say, well, we thought, we heard this was going to happen, so run with it. And then you find out that maybe that info, that you got, that narrative you got may not be totally true. So to me, you have to take what you hear nowadays, from within WWE, backstage-wise, contractually-wise, and all that. You have to, take it with a grain of salt. Now, I'm not saying none of what gets reported is not true or has truth to it to an extent, like with the Ricochet deal. But again, it's like, unless something comes from him, himself, I'd have to just be patient and wait and see what happens. I mean, there are some people saying his contract's not up till August. So who's to say that even if he gets written out, of television, that, they won't take the time away that he's probably earned, like a vacation or whatever, to heal up and everything. Who's to say they won't take that time to renegotiate his contract and give him what he feels he deserves and agree to let him be who he is? We don't know. We don't know whether or not that's something that they will do, because they could. I mean, we don't know if he has signed a new contract, and we're just, going off information based on what people have been told, previously. I mean, let's go back and look at the Drew McIntyre, situation. Everybody thought Drew McIntyre was heading out, possibly, of WWE, despite being featured prominently in a WrestleMania main event program and all that. Everybody thought he could be AEW bound, and you had people, making plans, visualizing in their head the atmosphere, the reaction he'll get it all in Wembley, and guess what? That all goes in smoke, up in smoke. It just goes up in smoke. Because, visually it's shown that not only is he staying, but he's resigned for several more years, despite the fact that maybe he already resigned way before that, and they just waited till his current contract was up to visually show you that, hey, he's staying. I mean, you look at the situation with Becky Lynch, if you will. Yeah, her current contract is up, but we don't know whether or not she signed a new one. We don't. We don't know if she signed a new one or not. And you have her posting on Twitter/X under the Twitter handle she still uses which is at Becky Lynch WWE, you have her posting pictures saying it must be Monday, with her basically in these pictures kind of in thought, like, characterize what would be her next move. To me, that's a hint that she's staying. Despite people saying, oh, Rebecca Quinn's going to be All Elite, Rebecca Quinn's going to go to All In, face Mercedes. It's like, seriously, who are you guys kidding? You know what I'm saying? Who are you guys kidding? The point I'm getting at is this. We as fans, we as overall wrestling fans need to realize that as much as we may want certain matchups, and not saying they won't ever happen, as much as we want them, sometimes we got to be patient about them. And sometimes that patience could run for many years. It could last for many years before what we want actually happens. I know based on what Ospreay said this past week about Ricochet's positioning in the company, people feel like, Ospreay's right, Ricochet should do more. And people would say it's kind of ironic that Ricochet's putting in his notice, or so they say. And it's just one of those scenarios to where it's like you don't know exactly what's going to happen, what's going to happen next, and for all we know, whoever gave Mike Johnson this information of Ricochet giving him his notice and everybody else now running with it, for all we know, that could have been a false narrative. Somebody could have been given a false information in WWE, one of the inside sources, or maybe somebody's just acting like one of the inside sources and trolling you. You don't know. It might be all a troll job by someone acting like a source just to see what people's reaction would be. Because they know wrestling fans, hardcore, casual, overall, above all that, they know people, they know wrestling fans of all kinds will take the bait. They will bite, and they will run with whatever they hear, because they know they just want to have that one dream match or that one dream rematch between him and Ospreay, and and other dream matches as well. But here's the thing: we don't know exactly what the status quo is. Again, they can write him off television tonight, but that doesn't mean he won't return. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't mean he won't return. So while I just took a break there for a moment, I did see that they did have Braun, as people were saying, attack Ricochet and kind of write him off television. But here's the thing, again, his contract is not up until earlier, until the first half of the summer, basically towards August, according to a lot of people. So we don't know. We don't know what's going to happen or anything. We don't know the exact date. We don't know if he has vacation time coming. We don't know. We don't know what's going on. But again, he hasn't said anything. And by the way, some people did mention he's wearing new merchandise. Why would a company create new merchandise for somebody if he was going to be leaving? It doesn't make sense. You know what I'm saying? Why would they do that? So there's something, there's something amiss. You know what I'm saying? There's something amiss to where basically, again, we won't know the full details until the man himself says something, or until, WWE acknowledges it or whatever. The thing is, people have to realize that just because, Ospreay said something, last week doesn't mean, it doesn't mean Ricochet's going to take that and say, hey, he's right, Paul. I'm not being benefited here. I'm going to leave. I want to go. Here's my notice. He's not going to do that. He's going to basically bring it up to Levesque and say, look, I want to stay here, but Ospreay's got a point. What is it going to take for me to be myself again? And I think that might be why they do these kind of things, because they're going to keep them around, but probably in the last months of active wrestling, or active competition, they're going to let them be themselves. So that way, if they decide to stay, if they decide to stay, WWE could be like, hey, we saw what you did. We allowed you to be yourself. You impressed us. Fine. You can be that way going forward. But again, we don't know. We don't know exactly what's going to happen. I mean, let's take a look at all the other people they've done similar storylines to in the past, all right? Even under the VKM era. They've written them off, storyline-wise, because of similar attacks. And let's not forget, even under the VKM era, there were assumptions, hey, that's the person's last appearance on the show. And most times they would be right, because all of a sudden, here they come, showing up in another promotion, only to maybe, at the promoter's or owner's request, shoot down the other company for the way they wrote them off or something. But the point I'm getting at is, just because he got taken out on Raw here doesn't mean anything, okay? Again, we've seen this before. We've seen this before, even with wrestlers that have been contracted. We've seen this before. Even under Triple H's run in NXT, we've seen it before. But it doesn't, and his thing, it doesn't mean anything until we get confirmation one way or another. Again, I'm like I said earlier, I'm not saying there wasn't any truth to this. I'm not saying that they wouldn't have found a way to write him off, okay? But the thing is, there's a lot of hints going around, okay, that he's still going to be with the company. I mean, again, new merch. Why did you put new merch out? Doesn't make sense. Why put him into this situation, this angle with, him and Elion? It doesn't make sense. Or with him, Elion, and Braun, I should say, it doesn't make sense. To me, it's one of those situations to where we have to wait and see. And again, he might have some vacay time coming around, okay? He might have some vacay time. Just because he doesn't have any dates scheduled doesn't mean he doesn't stay under contract. It might be because he has some vacation time coming, but they're just not telling you. Because that's his business, not yours. So, again, we just got to be patient and wait and see what happens. And if this is true, if it is true he's done, then why do it now? Why pull the trigger on removing him from WWE television now if his contract isn't up until later this summer? Like late July, early August. Why write him off now if he doesn't, his contract doesn't expire to maybe after Money in the Bank? I don't understand that. You see, to me, there's something not connecting, like the dots are not connecting, But again, we'll have to wait and see what happens. And if I'm anybody right now, I would hold off any plans, any fantasy booking of a Ricochet in New Japan against all the great talent there, or Ricochet against AEW in a Ospreay rematch, or all the other great talent there, or TNA, or whatever. I'd hold my horses. The same with Nattie Neidhart, the same with, Angel Gaza, the same with Chad Gable, because it looks like Chad's staying. I would wait. Because again, people thought Drew was also leaving, right? Even when he got injured, after he lost at WrestleMania, had his moment, people still thought he was leaving, but he stayed. He stayed with WWE, even though he was off television nursing his injury, healing from his injury. He stayed. So who's to say Ricochet won't do the same thing? This is just a way for him to maybe heal up his body from all the, on the road stuff he's been doing, and, give him a little bit of a vacay. The word is Triple H likes him and he likes Triple H, so why break that bond? I'm just saying. And again, as I mentioned before, we have to be careful. For all we know, the person that gave Mike Johnson that information and everybody else ran with it about the contract status could have been a troll. We don't know. And again, just because he doesn't have no available time or other scheduled dates on his contract doesn't mean he's not staying with the company. It just means maybe he's taking a break. I'm telling you, WWE in this Triple H regime, Triple H TKO regime, is not going to tell you everything. They might let some things slip out, just to, get you to tune in and see what happens, but they're not going to give you the full details. So we'll just have to wait and see. And if I'm anybody else that hopes for dream matches with Ricochet and everybody else, look, I'm not saying they won't happen, because we don't know the full story just yet. We don't know those just yet. But I would hold off on those dream matches right now. The same with Becky. The same with everybody else whose contracts are coming up. That's all I'm going to say. So if I'm you guys and I want those dream matches to occur, I would hold up on it. I would just wait. I mean, look, I get it that if the overall wrestling fan base had control of all the wrestling promotions in the world, that they would basically take the best wrestlers they feel complement each other's style and put them in 60-minute, 90-minute Iron Man or Iron Woman matches, that would go to draws, and then have them just restart for another 60, 90 minutes because they want to see the flips and the kicks and all that. I get it. I do. But, but unfortunately, they don't have that power. They don't. So if I'm the wrestling fan base overall, I would say this: hold your horses, be patient, and just wait and see what happens. Even because again, we've seen this before with wrestlers, men and women. They put in this kind of scenario. Guess what? They've come back. They've stayed, and they've been given pushes. Who's to say this isn't Ricochet taking a break and then coming back and being rejuvenated and being himself now? Just saying. This might be what they want to do because Triple H sees, hey, he's not himself. He's not the Ricochet I brought into NXT. I'm going to give him a break. I'm going to let him find himself, and I'm going to bring him back when the time is right. And maybe restructure his contract to allow that to happen. But we'll have to see. But let me know what your thoughts are, guys, on this whole scenario. But again, in closing, I would say if you want dream matches, based on what you're hearing with these contractual status, I'd say hold up on that. Because you don't know exactly what the real truth is behind all this unless it comes from the people themselves or from the company themselves. Because again, like I said, in this era, this regime, things might slip out, but they won't be slipping out as much as they used to under the previous regime. Just think about that.